Babylon, the city of power, wealth, and decadence, has always stood as a symbol of rebellion against God. Its walls witnessed secrets lost to time, prophecies few believed, and warnings the world ignored. Babylon's last cry, the prophecy no one believed, invites us to uncover the echoes of a past that still resonates today, revealing the final fall of an empire that thought itself eternal and the eternal lesson God left for humanity. The origins of Babylon, from glorious city to symbol of sin. Babylon. Just the name evokes images of grandeur, power, and mystery. But behind the splendor lay a story of human ambition, pride, and eventual downfall. Founded along the fertile banks of the Euphrates River, Babylon began as a thriving city-state in Mesopotamia, flourishing under kings who valued innovation, art, and architecture. Its hanging gardens, towering ziggurats, and bustling markets became legendary, attracting travelers, merchants, and scholars from across the ancient world. Babylon was, in many ways, the heartbeat of early civilization, a place where culture and progress intertwined. Yet, beneath its beauty, Babylon began to embody something darker. The city became a symbol of human pride and defiance against God, a place where wealth and power often overshadowed humility and faith. The Bible frequently references Babylon not just as a physical city, but as a representation of moral decay and spiritual rebellion. Its rulers exalted themselves, seeking to rival the divine, and the people embraced idolatry, indulgence, and oppression. What can we learn from this transformation? Babylon reminds us that even the greatest achievements, stunning cities, unmatched wealth, or impressive power, can be hollow if disconnected from righteousness. Its story challenges us to reflect on our own lives. Where might ambition blind us to what is right? How do pride and desire shape our decisions today? Imagine walking through ancient Babylon, marveling at the grandeur of its streets and temples. At first, awe fills you, but slowly, a subtle unease creeps in. A sense that something vital is missing. That duality captures the essence of Babylon, a brilliant civilization whose glory became a warning for generations to come. In the end, Babylon's fall is not merely a historical event, it is a timeless lesson. Power without humility, wealth without justice, and knowledge without wisdom can lead even the most magnificent civilizations toward ruin. Babylon stands as both a marvel of human achievement and a mirror reflecting the dangers of pride, a story still relevant in our world today. Kings and their secrets. Power, corruption, and pride. Babylon, the jewel of the ancient world, was more than a city. It was a symbol of human ambition, ingenuity, and the dangerous allure of unchecked power. At the heart of this grandeur were its kings, rulers whose visions reached far beyond the ordinary, yet whose desires often veered into the realm of hubris. The rulers of Babylon were ambitious beyond measure. They built towering ziggurats that almost kissed the heavens, expanded empires with meticulous strategy, and surrounded themselves with luxuries that dazzled both allies and enemies alike. But behind these achievements lay a deeper story, one of pride, manipulation, and moral compromise. These kings believed that their authority was absolute, that their wisdom could rival even the divine. This arrogance was their undoing. In their quest for glory, they oppressed the vulnerable, ignored justice, and elevated themselves above the law and, ultimately, above God. Scripture often portrays Babylon's rulers as embodiments of pride, figures who trusted in their own strength rather than in guidance or mercy. Their secrets, hidden behind palace walls and whispered in the corridors of power, reveal a chilling pattern. Wealth and power can blind even the most brilliant minds to the inevitable consequences of their actions. Yet their stories are not mere historical curiosity. They serve as timeless warnings about the seductive nature of power and the fragile line between ambition and arrogance. The same cities, empires, or organizations we admire today can fall into the same trap if pride goes unchecked. Babylon's kings remind us that when humans elevate themselves above justice, humility, and morality, They invite consequences that no fortress or army can resist. What makes Babylon's tale even more compelling is the interplay of visible splendor and hidden corruption. From the hanging gardens to the golden gates, the city displayed the heights of human creativity. But beneath the surface, corruption eroded the very foundations of authority. Their ambitions were grand, but their failure lay in the refusal to recognize limits, to submit to accountability, and to respect forces greater than themselves. In the end, the rulers of Babylon stand as paradoxes, brilliant architects of civilization, yet tragic examples of human frailty. They teach us that knowledge, skill, and vision alone are not enough. Wisdom is measured not just by what one can achieve, but by how one wields power responsibly, justly, and humbly. Babylon's story is more than history. It is a mirror reflecting the eternal struggle between human ambition and divine justice. The secrets of its kings whisper across the centuries, reminding us that pride may build towers, but humility withstands the test of time. The Forgotten Prophet, warnings ignored by humanity.
Throughout history, humanity has often dismissed the voices that matter most, the ones warning of danger before it arrives. In the story of Babylon, this pattern repeats with haunting clarity. The forgotten prophet emerges not as a figure of fame or grandeur, but as a solitary voice, burdened with the weight of truth. His message was clear, urgent, and uncompromising. The proud city of Babylon, with its towering walls and glittering wealth, was on a path toward destruction, unless its people heeded the call to repentance.
Yet, as is often the case, the people ignored him. Leaders scoffed at his warnings, merchants continued their pursuit of profit, and citizens reveled in the illusion of safety. The prophet's words, full of divine insight, were dismissed as the ramblings of a fanatic. The tragedy is not only in the impending doom, but in the fact that it could have been avoided. His prophecies were not mere predictions. They were instructions, a roadmap to survival and restoration. Imagine walking through the streets of Babylon as this prophet did. The markets bustling, the temples shining, the grand palace full of opulence, and knowing that every stone and every smile was masking a fragile foundation built on pride and neglect. The prophet's voice pierced the air like a warning bell, yet it fell on deaf ears. This tension between divine warning and human stubbornness is as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago.
What makes this story compelling is not just the fall of a city, but the human tendency to ignore truth until it is too late. The prophet becomes a symbol of what happens when wisdom is sidelined by arrogance, when messages of salvation are drowned out by noise. He reminds us that God's voice often comes through the least likely channels, and that ignoring it carries consequences far beyond imagination.
But there is also hope in this narrative. The prophet's message, though ignored then, lives on in the lessons we can draw today. It challenges us to listen carefully to warnings, to question blind pride, and to consider the path we are treading. Babylon fell because humanity refused to act, yet the echoes of the prophet's words endure, calling out to anyone willing to hear. In the end, the forgotten prophet is not just a relic of ancient times. He is a mirror reflecting our own world, a world where warnings are still ignored, where pride blinds judgment, and where the voices calling for change are still too often dismissed. Will we listen before it's too late? Or will we repeat the mistakes of Babylon, the tower that reached the heavens, pride that defied God? The Tower of Babel is more than an ancient story etched in the pages of Genesis. It is a timeless parable about human pride, ambition, and the danger of trying to elevate ourselves above God. Picture a civilization, united by language and purpose, coming together to construct a tower that reaches the heavens. At first glance, it may seem like a marvel of human ingenuity, a testament to what we can achieve when we work together. But beneath the surface lies a cautionary tale. Ambition untethered from humility can become rebellion. Babel was not merely a building project, it was a symbol of defiance. The people wanted to make a name for themselves, to claim glory independent of the Creator. In doing so, they ignored a fundamental truth. God is the source of all wisdom and power, and when humanity tries to replace or surpass Him, chaos inevitably follows. The narrative says God confused their language, scattering them across the earth, not as punishment alone, but as a necessary interruption. Without this divine intervention, human pride could have led to spiritual and societal collapse. But what does this mean for us today? Modern Babels take many forms. Perhaps it is the relentless pursuit of wealth or fame, the desire to control every aspect of life, or the belief that technology and intellect can replace moral and spiritual guidance. When we place our trust in our own hands rather than seeking alignment with God, we echo the same pride that once fueled the tower. The story also invites us to reflect on the power of unity when coupled with purpose, aligned to God's will. Human achievement is incredible when creativity, collaboration, and innovation are grounded in humility and reverence for the divine. But when pride becomes the foundation, even the grandest accomplishments can crumble. Interactive reflection. Consider your own tower. What areas of your life are built on pride or the desire to control outcomes? Where might humility and dependence on God transform your ambitions into something enduring rather than fleeting? The Tower of Babel reminds us that true greatness is not measured by how high we can build, but by how faithfully we align ourselves with God's design. Its spiritual lesson transcends time. Humility, reverence, and divine guidance are the foundations of any lasting legacy. Gold and decay, wealth that corrupts the soul. Babylon, the legendary city of grandeur, opulence, and unimaginable wealth, stands as a timeless symbol of luxury gone astray. Its golden streets, towering palaces, and elaborate temples were not merely signs of human achievement. They were testaments to an obsession with material power that blinded its rulers and citizens alike to spiritual truths. In the story of Babylon, we see a vivid illustration of how wealth, when divorced from wisdom and humility, can become a corrosive force, slowly eroding the soul. The allure of gold and lavishness is not unique to Babylon. Yet what makes Babylon particularly striking is how it transformed prosperity into pride, and pride into self-destruction. Its kings and nobles pursued comfort, influence, and admiration, building monuments to their own grandeur rather than to honor God. The city's markets overflowed with luxury goods, its streets buzzed with extravagance, and its culture celebrated indulgence above virtue. In this environment, moral decay became inevitable. Wealth was no longer a tool to serve the community or glorify the divine. It became an idol in its own right, a lure that captured hearts and minds. But the story of Babylon also carries a warning. Material excess is never sustainable. The deeper the citizens sank into their pursuit of comfort, the more fragile the foundation of their society became. Spiritual blindness and arrogance often accompany the relentless chase for power and riches. When a city or a person places gold above goodness, it risks losing both integrity and perspective. Babylon's ultimate destruction was not merely a political or military event. It was the inevitable consequence of spiritual corruption, a civilization devoured by the very wealth it worshipped. Yet, this narrative is not only historical, it is deeply relevant today. In modern societies, where material success is celebrated and status symbols are idolized, Babylon serves as a mirror. It reminds us to examine our own lives. Are our ambitions and pursuits enriching the soul or corrupting it? Are we building legacies of meaning or merely accumulating treasures that will fade? The decay of Babylon teaches a profound lesson. Wealth without purpose, wisdom, and humility is not a blessing. It is a trap. In the end, Babylon's story is a timeless allegory. It warns us that, while gold can adorn walls and fill coffers, it cannot fortify the spirit. True strength, resilience, and lasting legacy are born not from what we own, but from how we live, love, and honor the values that transcend material allure. In the glittering reflection of Babylon, we are challenged to confront our own temptations and ask, will we succumb to the seductive pull of wealth, or will we seek a richer treasure, one that endures beyond the decay of this world? Secrets of the Temple, worship, idolatry, and betrayal. The temples of Babylon were more than places of worship. They were the heart of a civilization that believed it could touch the heavens. Towering ziggurats, adorned with gold and precious stones, symbolized the city's ambition and its ruler's pride. Within these sacred walls, priests performed intricate rituals, seeking favor from gods who represented the forces of nature, power, and destiny itself. Yet behind the grandeur and devotion lay a web of corruption, idolatry, and betrayal. Babylonian worship was not merely spiritual, it was political. Kings relied on the temples to legitimize their authority, intertwining faith with ambition. Priests wielded influence, sometimes exploiting the devotion of the people for personal gain. Temples became places where divine connection was promised, but human pride often dictated the rules. Idols, shimmering and imposing, took the place of the living God, and the people's hearts slowly drifted from true obedience. The betrayal of God was subtle but profound. Where his voice demanded humility and justice, the temple leaders offered pomp and ritual devoid of moral reflection. The very acts that were meant to honor the divine became tools for manipulation. In the name of the gods, the powerful exploited the powerless, and the sacred spaces, instead of guiding people toward God, became mirrors of human arrogance. Every incense burned, every hymn sung, was a silent witness to a society straying further from the Creator. And yet, these secrets were not hidden from God. The fate of Babylon was sealed the moment hearts turned fully from Him. The temples that once inspired awe and devotion became monuments to folly, destined to fall. History would show that no amount of gold or architectural brilliance could shield a nation from divine judgment. The downfall was inevitable, not because the gods were weak, but because the one true God allowed pride to run its course. For us today, the story of Babylon's temples is both warning and reflection. It challenges us to examine what we place above God in our lives, our ambitions, our comforts, our idols. Temples of stone may crumble, but the idols of the heart persist silently, shaping our destiny. True worship requires more than ritual. It demands fidelity, humility, and the courage to turn from human pride to divine guidance. Babylon's grandeur is gone, but its lessons remain. In the echoes of its fallen temples, we hear a call to worship the living God with hearts untainted by pride, to resist the allure of false idols, and to remain faithful when temptation whispers betrayal. The cry no one heard, prophecies ignored by the world. Throughout history, humanity has been confronted with warnings, messages delivered by prophets, visionaries, and messengers of God, intended to guide nations and individuals away from destruction. Yet, so often, these cries were met with skepticism, ridicule, or outright dismissal. The stories of prophecies ignored reveal not only the patience of the divine, but also the consequences of human arrogance and inattention. Take, for example, the ancient prophets of Israel, whose voices were persistent but often overlooked. Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel warned their people of impending exile, corruption, and judgment. They spoke of events that seemed improbable at the time, a city fallen, a kingdom defeated, but their messages were rooted in divine insight. Their warnings were ignored, yet history ultimately unfolded exactly as they had proclaimed, proving that even in disbelief, divine truth does not waver. This theme extends beyond biblical times. Throughout the world, countless figures have sounded alarms about moral decay, natural disasters, or political upheaval, only to be dismissed by those in power. From modern warnings about environmental collapse to overlooked voices predicting societal consequences of unchecked greed and corruption, the pattern repeats. Humanity resists hearing what challenges comfort, convenience, or pride. The tragedy lies not in the prophecy itself, but in humanity's failure to respond. Ignoring these messages is not merely a passive act, it is a choice that shapes destiny. Every ignored warning is a crossroads where the path of destruction grows clearer, and the opportunity for correction diminishes. But there is also a lesson of hope embedded in these narratives. Even when cries are ignored, They testify to the faithfulness of the divine, offering a chance for reflection and repentance. The prophecies that came true with precision remind us that the universe, or God, operates with order, justice, and timing, far beyond human understanding. They call us to listen, to act, and to align ourselves with wisdom before it is too late. In reflecting on the cry no one heard, we are invited to consider, how often do we ignore warnings in our own lives, signs of moral compromise, spiritual drift, or impending consequences? The story of ignored prophecies is ultimately a mirror, challenging each of us to pay attention, to respond, and to recognize that the voices of truth are always speaking, even when we choose not to hear.